Hey, everybody, welcome back. It is Thursday and we are here. This is Camille Essick. I'm host of the Speaker Podcast, the podcast where innovators and critics connect. Be sure to follow us now, hit that notification bell, and subscribe. You can follow us right now. We're on Facebook and YouTube, and that's at the Speaker Podcast. And I would love to hear from you. Send me an email at thespeakerpodcast@gmail.com. I have new ebooks out available on my website, and I'm also on Instagram at Camille.Essick. And I have some things coming up in 2025. So be sure to subscribe to my website, CamilleEssick.com. That way you can stay in the loop on everything. Now, with that being said, y'all, um, Derek has been here with me since season one. He has been here for every heart and soul. I did the first one in 2019. Like he's been here for all the things. So he is literally like a veteran. He's an OG to the show. So if you don't know who he is, shame on you. You need to know who he is. And if you don't know, you're about to mess around and find out. So my brother and friend Derek D. Ross is here. Derek, welcome back.
Thank you, thank you. What's up, everybody? And thank you to my dear friend Camille. I love what you're doing and staying consistent and intentional with the work and all the great things that you're doing with the Speaker Podcast. So shout out to you and thank you for having me back.
You're welcome. Now, you know I'm gonna keep asking until it comes back. Convos and collabs. It listen, I'ma speak it back into the existence, okay? Because we need that. The people need the convos and collabs. Like seriously.
Listen, it might be something that trickles out in 2025. I've been doing some resetting, just my own work, my own kind of branding things, and so I'm excited about some stuff I've been cooking up. So it definitely can might make a reappearance in 2025. So.
Come on. So those that are not familiar with who you are, just as a recap, let the people know who you are and a little bit about what you do.
So my name is Derek D. Ross. I am probably a 20-year veteran in the marketing, branding, and communication space. So people call me a brand architect, communication strategist, but I help to amplify the voice, impact, and visibility of brands from corporate to executives and leaders who want to take their experience and their knowledge and step out and create a voice for themselves to then create further impact with what they know and what they do and really to leave a legacy that creates impact. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be here and excited to just pour into those who will listen, who will watch us, and then as well as who will listen to our conversation today. So what's up, everybody?
Hey y'all, hey. And I will say, Derek is a wealth of information. Even just outside of our just relationship as my brother and friend, he has taken the time to pour into me some other things. So even what you see here with the speaker podcast is a result of him guiding me when I'm asked questions like, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" And just being one of those sounding boards when there were moments when I was not sure about certain things. Derek definitely was and has been one of those people um, for me. So I just want to say thank you and to give you your flowers.
Oh, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Listen, iron sharpens iron, and so I know anytime that I need you, and we've had conversations as well, that's helped me out. And so yeah, I love it. And I tell people all the time, I've curated. I'm proud of the circle that I've curated over time because it's really tried and true of the people that I love and support, and the people that I really feel have my back. And when you
Absolutely.
have that type of circle and that type of support, you can take on anything.
Absolutely. I really want to slide right into this conversation. The
Mhm.
last couple of weeks for the culture, it's been very daunting and it's been a lot. And as a culture, we're just like, you know, and so in the corporate space
Mhm.
going into 2025, um, what does it look like as far as navigating professional spaces in terms of interaction, conversation? Because I'm gonna be honest, the day after, it was the that week was so awkward and,
Mhm.
um, very quiet,
Yes.
and you as far as with us, we gave each other that cultural nod, like but then it was like, "How
Mhm.
you doing?" And it was just like, "Girl," but then on the other side, we're looking like, "Was it you?" you know? And
I,
you know what I'm
I
saying?
got you. I got you.
Like,
I know what
were
you're saying.
you are you responsible for this? And so it was just a very awkward
Hmm.
um space. And so just going into the remainder of this year and the next year, how are we navigating these spaces, Derek? Like, what are we doing here?
I honestly, I think it's really a moment and a day at a time. I think we all, similar to when the pandemic hit, we were all dealing with a newness that we haven't experienced before. And I think step one is to acknowledge that. And then step two is to give yourself grace as you begin to kind of process and proceed forward because there's no blueprint, right? Life
Mhm.
already doesn't have a blueprint as it is. And so when you throw other things into it that makes life either exciting in some spaces, disappointing and scary in others, there are no blueprints for how to navigate those types of terrains. And so you first have to give yourself the grace and knowing that, hey, I've never been here before. I'm navigating this just like everybody else in the world. No one has the cheat codes and can see ahead and know what's going to happen next. We're all just kind of flowing together. And so for me, it's really been taking it a day at a time, taking time for myself when I need it to try to kind of breathe and just reset, but then also making sure that I surround myself and support myself with community and then showing up for others because I know part of what fills me is feeling and supporting others. So just staying true to the core, and I think it's a good time for people to go back to the core of who they are, their
Mhm.
values, where they stand, and just kind of revisit that. Where am
Mhm.
I at today? And how is that different from when I was who I was 2 years ago or a year ago? Right? Is a really good time to self reflect and kind of see who you are at your core here first and foremost.
Absolutely. And then we've seen this wave of support through social
Hmm.
media, but I really believe that supporting each other should not, and it's not just a trend, but to make it more of a cultural norm. And
Hmm.
maybe is this something that we'll see, not that we haven't been doing it, because when Issa Rae dropped her bar about how she was rooting for everybody, so it's like,
Hmm.
are we seeing a continuum of that, or what is that looking like? Or do you think it's just a trend, or do you think this is becoming the new norm, like strengthening the support, just for mere survival? Like
Hmm.
what are we doing?
I actually think it might be something that's going to be here to stay for a while because the thing that we're supporting each other for isn't just here and gone.
Right.
We're going to have a time with this, right? Essentially, 4 or 5 years potentially. And so I think it's going to be a constant reminder. It's going to be in our faces day in and day out. And so I think we're going to have to figure out one, how to um, strengthen ourselves so that we can run the marathon and not the
Mhm.
sprint, right? This is
Yes.
going to be a marathon. And so I think it's going to be important to, once we understand and we settle in and know what race we're running, we can prepare properly, right? So yeah, I think it's going to be here for the long term. And I think we are still going to see some consistency in the support that we are seeing that, we've typically seen in the past kind of fall off after a month or two or after the hype has died
Yeah.
down some.
And what does that look like in a mental health space? Because I know, we're going to church and tithing and praising God, but
Mhm.
then we still have our feelings and we're still having to process these
Mhm.
emotions. And yes, pray, of course, but how do we
Mhm.
navigate this space when we're really dealing with grief or uncertainty or just questions, thinking about our community, our friends, our family? Like, what are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
First thing, you can't sweep it under the rug, right? You can't pray this away. You can't pray it away. Prayer is important as far from a faith perspective and how you root yourself and ground yourself to sometimes give you the strength to proceed. But then you have to take action. You have to be intentional about your words and understanding that it's two sides of the same coin, right? You need prayer, you need faith, but you also need action and you need intentionality around what that looks like. And so I think one is just pay attention. You have to know in order to be effective. You have to be in the know of what's going on. You can't just turn a blind eye to it. So as much for me as I don't like watching the news or certain things, I need to be tuned into certain things so I know what's going on so I can properly prepare myself, whether that's educating myself, whether that's connecting with people who know more than I do, and really
Mhm.
getting together. It's almost like we're about to join a big group project. And I know a lot of people don't like group projects from back in the day when they were in school, but we are going to be a part of a big group project, and everybody has to put in their part in order for us to get the assignment right this time.
Yeah, like a social experiment, but it's like this
Hmm.
one is for all the marbles, as they would say, and this is
Listen,
for all the things,
all the
because this
things.
will change the trajectory of the culture for
Hmm.
generations, and so if that means doing a town hall or doing more roots work, doing more intentional spending with our dollars with people that look
Hmm.
like us,
Yeah.
um, what do you say to that as just far as day-to-day support, weekly check-ins or bi-weekly check-ins with your friends, your families, your bros, your sorors? Like,
Yeah.
what is Derek's plan?
My plan is to actually be a doer of the words, right?
Mhm.
No longer can we just say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna give you a call and check in," and then like get busy, you don't check in. You actually have
Right.
to carve out the time to support the businesses and spend the money to call that friend to, say if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to create a town hall, right? Let's put it in action. You
Right.
can't now hide behind being busy because it's too much at stake, right? You can't hide behind the guise of, oh, work was crazy. It may be, and right,
Mhm.
because we have a lot to do, and it's going to require everybody, and again, everybody at different levels. Like everybody doesn't have the same capacity to pour in, or same knowledge, or the same gifting. So it's really, if you are a great organizer, then stay in that lane of organization, because everybody's not an organizer. If you are a great speaker and someone who can articulate and really make points clear and concise where people can understand it, then you need to be out there speaking and amplifying your voice, because we people fail for a lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding. As we can see how things have shaped out, people play off of words and spew fear to get people to react, or take action in a certain way. And so
Mhm.
if you have a gifting of making things clear, of getting or bringing peace and calming people down, then that's a gift that we need. So it's really people understanding their gifting and how that can be used to amplify and help, right? God has given us all gifts, right? And so how we use those gifts to uplift and move, things forward is going to be super important, because you can see it's being done to do opposite things, right? Those gifts are being used in a way. So it's all in how you use it and how you show up. And I think there's so many people with gifts out there, and now it's time to really break them out those boxes and starting to shake off the dust and use them.
Absolutely, and then I also believe too, yes, stay in the loop, um, know what's going on, but, um, know your boundaries, know your limits, and knowing like,
Hmm.
"Okay, this is a lot today." Implementing those social media breaks or just finding something else to watch other than that, whether if it's your favorite show, a sermon, a devotional, um, because we don't want anyone out here,
Hmm.
willfully ignorant or just saying, "No, I just wanna know, I'm just gonna stick my hand in the sand." Like, no, that's definitely not what we want you to do, but
Absolutely.
guarding those gates and knowing, how much you can take on today, and normally, I'm pretty good about being plugged in. For me personally, I have taken a step back from it only because I'm
Hmm.
still trying to digest the initial announcement and just going through that, and so, for me, it's been like, "Okay, let me look at this, let me look at that. Okay, that's enough. Let me check out of
Hmm.
that and move on to something else," because if not, we can be so consumed, it can consume you and literally open the door for depression, anxiety, particularly that we're just literally 2.5 years post-pandemic. Like, we're
Yeah.
just starting to get on an upswing and beginning to kind of relax a little bit. Now it's this, and I think
Hmm.
as a culture, just as a people, just a country, it can be very jarring to go right back into the another jolt when we're just
Hmm.
beginning to catch our breath from the first one.
Absolutely. And and that shows up in different ways. Like I know for me, it's creating boundaries around people and boundary around things, right? So I've turned off notifications to news updates. I stopped following certain news organizations and things like
Mhm.
that, because I don't want to see that in my feed
Right.
at this point. And when I'm ready to, tune in to the best outlets that's going to provide a balanced approach. And I'll give an example. There was one outlet when I was watching, the outcomes, they were already predicting certain things when things hadn't been confirmed. And so it was causing angst and a lot of stress. And I went to a different outlet and watched, and they were reporting factual, like, hey, these are too early to call, here's what it looks like. And it was a whole different energy. And so you
Mhm.
guys have to find the spaces that serve your mental, right,
Yeah.
within that. And then also with people, like there's people that want to have certain conversations about a certain person, and I'm like, I don't want to hear that. Like, I'm at capacity. I want to pour my energy and my time into other things. And so
Mhm.
you have to create a boundaries. And I told them that, I said, hey, I'm really don't have the capacity to talk about that, or I don't want to put my energy into that anymore. And they respect
Mhm.
that. And if they don't, it's like, okay, cool. Well, I know I can't call you around certain things, right? And so
Mhm.
to your point, you do have to check in with yourself to see where you are mentally and emotionally, and take those breaks when you need to. Just like Reese said, you have to take those emotional breaks before you emotionally break, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's important.
Absolutely. I agree. And so I have, again, to stay knowledgeable on certain things, but I have found myself doing more creative things, whether if it's working on
Mm-hmm.
something behind the scenes,
Yeah.
whether for my community or podcasting or creating a reel, something else that's more productive. And even if
Mm-hmm.
it's like today, cleaning out my closet, getting rid of clothes I know I'm not wearing, and doing that and putting my mind and
Mm-hmm.
energy into that, it's helped kind of level some things out from the last
Mm-hmm.
week. And just even still dealing with personal things over the last couple days. Again, a lot. And
Yeah.
it's just like we have to kind of mitigate. Hey, I don't have the capacity for this. Let me focus on this right now because this needs me and I need me. And right now, that's not warranted my attention. It's not warranting my attention right now, so
Absolutely. We must be kindred, because I kindred spirits, because I just did the same thing with my closet. I was cleaning things out, organizing, getting some feng shui within my room, some
yes,
flow, some things. Because if I can't have peace nowhere else, I'm going to have it in places where I can
absolutely.
control. So I try to do
Oh,
my best to create peace and
yes,
space.
sir. Absolutely. I got this rack. It's like a vintage exposed, rack, tiered rack from
Hmm.
Amazon. I'm gonna send you the link. I absolutely love it. The bar, it's like an exposed industrial pipe with a gold tone, and it has
Mm,
3 shelves. Now, the other shelf goes on the top, but I'm short, so I put on the bottom, and I got these
hmm.
really cool, not the strips, but these barred LED lights. I'll have
Oh,
to
cool.
send you the receipts. It really elevated my room. I was like, "My room feels like a boutique, and I like this." So, I'll have to send that to you. I do wanna shift gears just a little bit. I wanna
Yes.
talk about something is because we're always talking about relationships and dating, whatever. So, at
Hmm.
one point, Derek, when do we move past a person's attractive qualities and look deeper into the character in the conversation? You're already smiling because I'm like, I think sometimes people become so enamored by the packaging, and
Hmm.
it's just like you ignore a lot of red flags, and it's like, yes, they can be, cute and
Hmm.
handsome and fine and whatever, whatever, but, like, okay, can you hold a conversation? Are you
Hmm.
intellectually stimulating? Like, what are we doing here?
I mean, it's almost like, when you shop at, certain outlets. I won't call like names, brand names,
They're
but
not
you
paying
you
us.
it looks right. They're not paying us, so we won't get them a shout out. But it looks good on the side. You order it and you get it at the house. You're like, oh my goodness, I have a vision already of how this is going to fit and look on me based on the pictures. And you take it out and the material is off. It doesn't
Temu.
fit right. You're right.
It's giving Temu.
It's given to you. I would say that would be the same thing around transitioning from, looking past the attractive qualities, because a lot of times from a distance the attractive qualities might look appealing and amazing and all that other stuff, but when you get to the character, it shifts what those attractive qualities look like. There's been people that I've known, just as friends, that over time, they may have been attractive, and not someone that I wanted to talk to, but they've been an attractive individual. But over time, their character and how they've shifted has just really made them very unattractive as a friend or someone that I want in my circle, right? So I think that
Mhm.
goes both ways, whether it's romantic, whether it's, building your community and friendships, an attractive quality, because it's, I always say it's a reflection of you. And so the people that are around you reflect who you are as well in your character. And so I'm like, listen, I want beautiful people around me inside, which reflects on the outside, right? And so it's important. I think, and I always say if you sit and take the time to have conversations and talk and get to know someone and really listen, right? Talk about your experiences, talk about the things that you're interested in, right? And long enough, so not the first date, not the second date, not the third date, but continue on talking. Eventually you can always say, I would say this a lot, you can only hold a you can only play a role but for so long until your true character comes out.
Yeah, I always say an actor at some point will forget their lines.
Yes, and so and that's true about people who are not actually who they say they are. Like they use
Mhm.
their external to really get in, but you can't stay in if don't know how to act accordingly in the certain house where rules are, right? You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
I think it's just important just to have conversations and then just hold to your guns, right? You may have your own boundaries around how you want to move with people that you meet for the first time. Stick to those, because eventually people who really want to stay around will stay around, right? They will meet you where you are, and they will also show up and bring more, right? Like they say, when people go to a house party or you invite somebody to a kickback, those that bring stuff and weren't asked to bring stuff, you like, you know what, you're gonna come back. I'm gonna invite you back because
Not just
it's
ice.
almost you know what I'm saying? It's almost like that, not just ice and not just yourself and your appetite, right? But people, people have an instinct to be like, yo, I'm going to someone's house. They invite me there. You know what? I just want to bring something to say thank you. It's those type of people that think beyond just, what's in it for them, but they think about the other
Yeah.
person. I think that makes a difference.
Absolutely. It's just like even I know I've been invited, to places for dinner and I at least bring dessert, you
You
know,
know?
and I'm like, go to Dollar Tree, get a little Tupperware, take the price tag off, get a little dollar gift
Hmm.
bag, at least make it look like you tried to bake it, even though we know you bought
Yeah.
it. But it's just the effort,
It's the
and
effort.
it's the effort. I give credit for effort, but you just showing up and then you show up late and fashionably late, and
Hmm.
it's just so I agree with you on that. I think it's all about the actions. A lot
Hmm.
of people make a lot of promises, and it's like that saying, "Don't write a check your mouth can't cash,"
That part.
and I'd rather you not make the promise and then do it and surprise me than to say you're gonna do all this stuff, build my expectation, and then you
Hmm.
fall through because now it opens this door for distrust, and now I'm pulling back and I'm looking at you like, I don't know. So
I would say don't say yes when you mean no. I've caught
let your
myself in the
yays be yays
past,
and your nays be
you know,
nays.
you I've been in the grown I've learned that lesson enough to now in my adult teen years, my older adulting years, if I don't wanna do it, I do not say yes.
Young adulting
I
years.
my young adulting years, yes. I don't say yes when I know I mean no, because I don't wanna bring a certain energy to a room that has nothing to do with my decision. That room didn't ask for the energy that I'm bringing if I didn't really want to be there. You know what I'm saying? And so
Mhm.
you have to be intentional about what energy you spread, because if I go somewhere and I didn't really want to be there and then I have an energy around it, it's going to shift other things in that room. And that's not my intention. I don't ever want to go in a place and leave it worse off. I want to leave places better off when I leave,
Yeah.
when I step in there.
What's
And
that
so,
saying? Be a thermostat and not a thermometer.
mhm, yeah. Yeah, yeah. So it's just one of those things where, over time you really think about the impact of your legacy, right? And legacy is not just children and not just like it's how you impact people on a day to day.
Mhm.
That becomes a part of your legacy, because how you impacted them, then they then take that experience and then they use that and they impact others, and it continues. It's a snowball. Energy transfers. And
Yeah.
so I think about it even just in the simplest form. It's like every person that I meet, I have an opportunity to write a legacy of what Derek is leaving in the world.
Yeah. Resentment has a fragrance.
Hmm.
And if you didn't wanna be there
Then don't come.
Don't come. Like, who's all over there? You could
Right,
ask
who's
the
all over
question.
there, right? Now listen, I'll ask the question, who all gonna be on there?
You're
You know,
right.
because you also got to, that goes back to our early conversation. You also got to protect your peace. So if you don't, if you're interested in going somewhere, but there might be certain energies that you don't rock with, just don't put yourself in that situation to then have to come out of character.
Mhm. So what do
You
you
know.
in that, it's just like, how do you shifting gears just a little bit,
Mhm.
training your boundaries to be stronger than your empathy?
Ooh, that's a loaded one. One, it's you have to first be aware of your emotion, your own emotional states, and what your
Mhm.
triggers are and what takes you up and down. Because if you don't know those, then you'll also always find yourself in a situation where your your boundaries are not going to hold steady because you don't know, you're not emotionally intelligent enough to understand your ebbs and flows, what triggers you, what makes you go up and down. You know what I'm saying? And
Mhm.
so you have to really do the work, whether that's, having a therapist, whether that's talking to people, whether that's reading. I mean, there's a lot of tools out there that'll help you assess, kind of where you are, and different things like that. But I think that's the first step of knowing where your boundaries, where your bounds are just in and of yourself emotionally. And then that will help you understand better how to then create boundaries for other people, because then you know what your triggers are and then you know what not to put yourself into, right? Because you don't want to always test the waters, right? If you don't have to test the waters, if you know the waters of the tides are high, you don't go up there and say, "Oh, let me see the tides are high." They're telling you the tides are high. Don't go over
Mhm.
there and then you end up drowning because you wanted to test, but they already gave you the signs, and so you don't put yourself in a situation either, right? That's where wisdom comes in. You don't put
Yeah.
yourself in a situation that's going to cause you to then test yourself and come out of character when you know good and well that that space is going to be hot and heavy with that.
Yeah,
So
those
I think is
triggers.
yeah. So you have to take responsibility yourself around your boundaries and putting yourself in the best position to succeed. And therefore, and then in the spaces where you can't control that they kind of pop up, then you can then, leverage and use those boundaries accordingly, because and that's really what they're used for. Your boundaries are really set up for when things come up that you can't control, right? And
Yeah.
then wisdom helps you keep you out of spaces where you know that's what it is over there, so you don't go. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
there's a difference, and
Absolutely.
I think people have it, sometimes they have it flipped.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm at a point now, in my adult years, because we are adulting.
yeah, we are adulting.
And I'm at the point now where I previously would, um, like, "Oh, well, it's so and so," and let things slide, but inside of myself, upset,
Mhm,
angry, frustrated, annoyed, like all of the things, and the bad behavior continues. I'm like, "Well, that's
mhm,
so and so." But over time, I'm like, "This is not healthy. This is not good. I don't care who you are, how long we've known each other." And so I'm in a space now where I'm like, "Hey, this behavior, even though I have not spoken up about it before, I'm saying it
mhm,
now. I can't do this anymore. This is not healthy. This situation, this environment's not healthy for me,
mhm,
and this is what's going on." Now, if you say one way or the other how you feel about it, but you're just like, "Well, yeah, I know, but," and you wanna kinda glaze over that and be dismissive,
mhm.
so now it's up to me to act accordingly, and now we
Yeah.
free to move about the cabin because, um, things have to
I love that.
change, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
was on a podcast with Antoine Aiken,
Mhm,
and, he broke down friendship, and I love this. He said, "I use my levels and tiers of friendship." He uses a Delta Airlines plan.
mhm,
It's like you have first class, you have Delta Comfort, you have main cabin, and then you have economy.
mhm,
And then you have the ability to move these people around, you know, on this
mhm.
plane accordingly. And then I kinda jokingly was like, "Yeah, then we could also put them on standby, and we'll call." And so
Listen,
now I'm just like, we have put a lot of people in first class, but they're not giving you first class friendship, first class treatment. So now it's up to you to decide, they're in first class getting all these Biscoff cookies and getting all the delectables,
right.
but maybe you need to bump them down the main cabin or will call. I don't know. But for me, I'm just like, well, at this time in my life, this
Hmm.
is the bar. This is where I'm at. If you
Hmm.
cannot meet me here, that's fine. If you don't have the capacity for this standard, that's fine. Come back when you're able to do so. But
Hmm.
there's just certain bad behaviors and friendships, relationships, familiar situations. I'm just like, no, because I it's unhealthy. We're at our big grown age. We cannot continue to give people the pass if they're not gonna treat us right, talk to us right. Like, no. Like you said, let your nose be no.
Hmm. Yeah, family included. Listen, um, that'll preach, right? Yeah, I agree, and I think for me, like when you were talking about that, I was like, yeah, I love that analogy. I think I've switched over to private. I don't even fly commercial. So listen, my it's like I've done such a good job, and I pat myself on the back of really um customizing my friendships and really kind of paying attention to those still quiet voices. Stand back, let people eliminate themselves, right?
Mm.
People show up, people that don't. And I don't question because then I think, okay, they just don't have the capacity to be this type of friend. Or and so for me, it's and then different trips, invite different friends. So like it might be the same private jet, but the roster might look different on different trips, and so but everybody brings their value, and I think it's up to us too to understand the value in people, but also the capacity in people, and not give them
Mhm.
more than they can take. Because then we get mad when they can't show up, but it's like, well, darn, I already knew that they couldn't take that, and I don't know why I gave them more than they could bear, and I already seen they couldn't do it. So,
A single
so
engine.
I right, single engine, we're gonna be crop dust and all that. So, I've started doing that, and even just taking responsibility myself for when I
Yes.
have given people more than they could handle when it
Mhm.
comes to me, or if it comes to the type of friend that I am, and things like that. And so, and when you do that, you find that you can have more meaningful friendships because you allow people to show up as they are and what they can bring to the table. And it's kind of almost like gifting. If you allow people to work in their gift, they'll do amazing things. But as soon as you try to have them do something that's outside of that, that's when you start to see the falter and the mess up, and then they get frustrated because it's not where they are supposed to be.
Yeah,
And
like in their
so, yeah,
wheelhouse. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
so, so it's twofold. It's twofold. But I definitely agree. We have to also, every so often you have to do a audit even of your friends and kind of see where, because people grow and evolve, and it's at
Mhm.
no fault of other people. Like life be life, and people have experiences, different perspectives. People have traumas and a lot of things. They're dealing with things from the past, present, and we don't always know all those nuances and things. And so, you know, checking in with people, and sometimes they may exit your life, and it's okay, right? Because maybe you've grown apart, maybe you've grown in different areas, different spaces, and that friendship, how it was, no longer serves you all in this particular season, but maybe it'll come back together in another season, right? And so as I get older, like I had a good friend of mine, that we stopped being friends. We just were not in the same space. We were on two different ends of the spectrum. But
Mhm.
now it's been some years since gone by, and I'm thinking about reaching back out just to check in, to see how things are going, because maybe, there's been maturity and evolution over
Mhm.
time that we both had to experience separately in order to come back and possibly, rekindle a friendship, and so I think I'm always open to that to a certain extent, but as soon as I see
Mhm.
that wrap, then I'm done. I'm out. Peace. You
Yeah.
ain't saying, hey, how you doing? And I'm gonna keep it moving.
Did you go through a phase where you grieved the loss of that friendship? Because and I say that because I actually experienced that before, and it was someone I've known throughout my entire childhood. And this
Mm,
person, lot of bad behavior that I continue to accept because I'm like, "Oh, I've known each other since, since we're kids, whatever." But over time, I'm like, "This person's not changing." And then I did
yeah.
what you did, like, I took time and kinda backed up, and then we
Hmm.
reconnected. So, like you, I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, maybe they've changed, they've gotten better," but it did not take long, that same trait, the same behavior,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Mm, no, I can't."
Yeah.
And so I just wonder, like, did you go through a phase from that initial break? Because a lot of times we don't discuss, we talk about grief, people dying, but there are
Hmm.
people that grieve the loss of friendships, relationships, particularly people that you've known for a long time. Like,
Yeah. That's interesting you say that. Yeah. Yeah, grief is real when it comes to, people who are still with us, right?
yeah,
Friends, relationships, things of that nature. And I think part of the grief comes from you're grieving what you envisioned it being, like the potential of it, and so you grieve that piece, right? And then you grieve, the absence of that person as well, and it's hard. And I think you know what we desire sometimes is I still want that person in my life, but what does that look like? What does that look like where I still am respecting what I need, but I'm also long for the connection as well because there was something good there. When there is something good there, but if it's
yeah,
in a situation where there's nothing good there, then you can only do what you can do, and then as long as you feel like you've done everything in your power,
mhm,
and it still hasn't, come up with anything good. They still didn't show up in the way they need to show up.
yeah,
Then you can be at peace, right? And then you can kind of grieve in a sense where now you have peace because you know without a doubt you did everything that you can do. So yeah, I've
yeah.
grieved that particular friendship that I talked about. Because we were hanging hot and heavy, like that was my ace coon boom. You talk about that shit,
Yes.
and stuff. And so, but but when the bad started to outweigh the good, I knew it was time to let it go.
Mhm.
And it was one
Absolutely.
particular situation that happened, and I was just like, "Wow, that's not how I would operate as a friend." They was like, "Well, that's how I would," and I was like, "Oh, well, I clearly see that we're no longer in alignment in
And
far
I
as
was
this
gonna
friendship
ask you
is
that
concerned."
as far as when it because for me, that's how that was. It was
Mm,
the divide in philosophies, in moral compass, and
yeah,
that was major for me. There was a point in time where we were like, what was that? Thelma and Louise. We
right, 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 yeah, yeah,
but then it was like moral compass, like when you're teenagers and you do things that teens do. But
hmm
then coming into the 20s and the 30s and, where we are now, and it's like, we're not 20 anymore.
we're not that
And
anymore,
certain
right?
things are this is not working for me, you
It's
know?
not.
And this is the trajectory of where I see myself and where I'm going,
Hmm.
and you're still operating based off of this moral compass. And
Right.
I started seeing this conflict to where I'm feeling
Hmm.
convicted about stuff, and I'm like, now if we were 20 and going hanging out, with people, whatever, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But here, going to school and jobs and the degrees and the military, like, it's just like, dude, aren't you tired of that?
Aren't you tired of being tired?
Aren't you
It's
tired
it's
of
it's
that?
I remember there was a situation. I had a friend, years ago, we're no longer friends, but we had been friends for, like, a good decade, and, someone who knew that we were, like, best friends, we were close, asked
Yeah,
me, how that person was doing. I was like, "Oh, yeah, we're not friends." They was like, "Oh," and then so they proceeded to tell me, like, some, kinda shicey stuff that they did, and they was like, "Oh, well, I always thought you knew that because y'all was friends," and I was like, "No," and that's really when I got a real understanding of how people associate you with other people. And so they like that person didn't talk to me for a while because they thought I knew the shite,
birds of a
the dirty
feather.
handedness. Yeah, no. And I'm like, I'm in a whole nother state. I had no clue what was
Yeah,
going on. And so we cleared that up. But then I saw that action show up in a different space, and I just had to cut that person off because I was like, you're not
yeah.
about to make again my values and the things that I believe in and how I want to show up in
Your
the world.
name is on
My name
this.
is on it, and so I just had to cut it off, and people was like, "Wow," and I never talked dirty or bad about them or anything
Right,
like that.
right,
I kinda kept
absolutely.
that in, but I was like, when people used to ask me, I say, "Hey, we grew apart. We're no longer in the same
Yeah,
vein. We grew apart, and I wish them the best, and I keep it moving."
yeah, that's the experience I had, and it was like, I hadn't seen them in a long time,
Mhm.
and so in my mind, I'm thinking, these are my friends and whatever, but then to see, like, in real time what they were doing, I felt this part of me inside sink
Mm.
because the people I thought were here and to see what they were doing, And I'm like, I can't be associated with this. I don't want people to think that I'm that way,
Mhm.
and so I just fell back from that, and I was disappointed. Like, I was disappointed in them to know that was their mentality, and especially after all these years.
Yeah.
'Cause it was just like, really, again, no falling out, no
Mhm.
words, anything like that. I just took it upon myself to say take a step
Yeah.
back because, um, what they were doing, some shady things
Mhm.
as well, it just that did not align with my moral compass and the woman
Mhm.
I work to be,
Yeah.
not perfect, but working to be who I am today, and I'm like, I don't wanna be associated with that. I don't want my name in that, and
Mhm.
I didn't it just so I had to put the gap there.
Yeah.
So
And that's a part of that grief too, right? You said something I think that was really important. It's like the disappointment of that particular person and who you thought them to be. And I
mhm.
think sometimes we grieve the potential of people in our lives that we know have the capacity to be great or
Or
do
the
certain
idea we had of
things,
them from a previous
or
chapter.
we are or from a previous chapter, right? That
Yeah,
part. And so and so it could be, and so it's really important to kind of recognize we're all and recognize, identify, and call out all the things that we're grieving so that we're
mhm,
clear on what the grief is, right?
yeah,
We don't want to misplace grief and make it
yeah,
something that it's not, right? And make
yeah,
it something about us or something like that. But when we call it
yeah,
out, like you say, call a thing, then we can be clear about that. I heard a therapist say it's important to use the word to describe the experience, because
mm,
if you don't use the word that describes the experience, then how can you truly understand what that experience is? Because sometimes people may not want to use a certain word because certain words are uncomfortable. But if that's the word, use the word, because
yeah,
out of that word you can identify other connecting points or pieces and really get to the root of what it is. Because
mhm,
another word may be in the similar family, but it may not have the same sting to really
yeah.
understand what it is that is.
Yeah, it was the disappointment, and I missed the
Mhm.
camaraderie, because, these are my girls, but then
Yeah.
to see that that's the word that came to my mind. It
Mm.
was disappointment.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but God
Well,
has
it
since
creates
then
room for
brought
other things, right?
yeah, he's brought other people into my life, and I'm thankful for the and and I still love them and everything,
Mhm.
but just fast forwarding how God, can take things in situations and move other people aside to bring other people around. So, there's always, the scales are always balanced. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Derek, this has been a really good conversation, and I
Listen.
every time I talk, I'm like, I'm learning more about my friend.
Also,
So
same here. Same here. You
yeah.
know.
Yeah. So before you leave us, do you have
Mhm.
any like nuggets or takeaways, anything from the conversation that viewers and listeners can take with them until you come back, because you will come back. And then also
Absolutely.
where people can connect with you on social media.
So yeah, my takeaway from this conversation today, I think it's important for people to curate these kind of conversations within their own friend groups in their
Mhm.
own circles. Because I think, to your point, you say you learned so much about me, and I'm learning so many other things about you, and that's because a lot of times we don't get a chance to sit down and have conversations, and just talk, right? And so I think
Yeah.
people will learn so much about the people in their lives if they just sit down and talk and listen, not with any agenda, not listening to respond, but just letting people kind of share and pour their heart out. And I think out of that, we'll have so much more empathy for
Mhm.
people and where they are, and we can see the complexity of who we are as humans, right? Because I think sometimes we see each other on the surface level, but there's so many layers. And I think if we just sit down and have conversations, once we have those conversations and we see the depth and complexity of people, we can't unsee that. And then we
Mhm.
take that into other conversations and we give people more grace as a result. Like, I'm not gonna give you a
Yeah.
pass, but I'll give you a grace and I'm gonna keep it moving, right? But
Yeah.
I can pray for you and I can, wish the best for you. And then I know how to let things go as well. But that would be my takeaway, just to have more conversations. Open up your
Absolutely.
ears, open up your heart, and allow people to share without judgment, without trying to change them or make them, do something differently because it may not be something that you agree with. But just create a safe space for people to have conversations. And I think the world would actually be a better place as a result.
Absolutely. And people can find you where?
Derek D. Ross on all social media platforms from LinkedIn to Instagram. I might not be on Twitter too much long, but
Listen, the
Facebook
when I say the exodus is happening,
is
and
happening.
so I
Uh,
looked at
or
the
X,
other two
right?
sites that have been up in conversation, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm making that head exit stage
Hmm.
left within the next 24 hours. But then it's like, where do you go? They've been talking about a black owned site that's out
Yeah.
there, but I think it's subscription based. And I'm like, I have enough
Hmm.
subscriptions. And yes, I
Right.
do want to support, but then the other one. So I'm going to definitely check them out. The one that's been the one everyone's been going to, I think like in a day or so, over 1 million people are already on there.
Oh, cool.
And I'm thinking about the ease of rebuilding the audience and how, because
Hmm.
like right now, Threads is just really beginning to build steam. And I like
Yeah.
Threads, you know,
I do
be-
too.
because how the people that follow you kind of are already pulled in
Hmm.
automatically. And so I'm thinking I may just stay with Threads because the Threads
Hmm.
is putting out news just like everything else,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, I'm really ready to leave
Yeah.
what's face the letter.
What's the face? The
Yeah,
other one, right?
yeah,
Towards the
because
end of the alphabet.
it's about to get real stupid, and I'm like, you
Yeah.
know, I can get my news, weather, and sports and from other
Right.
places. So
Real quick. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, Derek D. Ross everywhere. Even my website, derekdross.com. So, you know, check me out, send a message if you enjoyed the conversation, and make sure you're following me and following, Camille and Speaker Podcast and on all places where you can get your podcast, right? Because she's amazing and she curates great conversations. So I appreciate you, my friend.
oh, thank you. Y'all be sure to follow Derek. He is the PR king. He is one to watch. This is the speaker podcast with innovators and Credits Connect. Y'all, this is Camilla Essig. Thank you, Derek, for joining me. We have one more episode before we wrap up the month of November.
I know.
Like this year is rolling on. Okay.
Mm,
But y'all be safe. It actually feels like Thanksgiving weather finally. Like last week we were still having like 80, 79, 75-degree weather. And today it
hmm.
rained and the temperature has dropped. And so I cleared out my space in my living room and I'm like, oh, the tree is going up.
Trees
So
going up. Listen, I broke out my pea coats. I got my long sleeves. Now I'm looking at decorations, hopefully soon.
absolutely, absolutely. So y'all be blessed, be safe. Hold on, sit tight, Derek. Y'all be blessed and thank you. Have a good night. Bye bye.